Welcome to Horrible Fates, where the most unexpected and tragic endings to seemingly ordinary lives are examined. We will take some time to explore the darkness that can lurk just beneath the surface of everyday existence. Welcome to The Cellar. Before I dive into this first story, I want to thank Ellen A., who sent me an email recommending I cover this tale. Thank you, Ellen. Now let's go ahead and dive into our first story. Julia Manfrini was born in 1988 in the small town of Venaria Reale. Venaria Reale is located in the metropolitan city of Turin in the Italian region of Piedmont. It's around a 3-hour, 246-kilometer or 153-mile drive south of Geneva, Switzerland. Growing up, Julia loved the outdoors. From the mountains to the oceans, she simply couldn't get enough. This love eventually led her to pursuing numerous different sports. She would take to skiing at a young age, but soon discovered that her passion belonged elsewhere. Julia would begin snowboarding, and from the first moment she strapped on a board, she knew this was what she wanted to do for the rest of her life. Julia would snowboard frequently, eventually turning her passion into a professional career. Julia was a talented young woman, and she would begin making a name for herself in 2006-2007 when she scored a victory in the Italian Youth Cup. Julia would continue to train and improve her skills. She would eventually travel to the University of Turin, where she would study law, and in 2013, she would graduate. Julia would eventually take her talent and knowledge and become a snowboarding instructor. She enjoyed working and teaching those that shared the same passion she had for the sport. Sadly for Julia, her professional snowboarding career would be derailed after she suffered an injury, but this didn't stop Julia from pushing forward. Julia would find her next passion far away from the snow-covered mountains. The waves and water were where her next adventure laid as she took to surfing with the same passion and love that she had brought to snowboarding. Just like snowboarding, Julia would become extremely good at surfing. She would continue to excel, and she eventually acquired her teaching certification. As a teacher, Julia would begin traveling the world. From my research, it's easy to say that Julia lived an incredible life, traveling all across the globe. She would visit 45 different countries, and she took the time to learn 6 different languages. She would also settle down and live in 6 different countries on 4 different continents. I found a quote about Julia that really summarized who she was. Julia couldn't travel without people falling in love with her smile, laugh, and endless stoke. Anyone was lucky to have her on board a charter or surf trip. That now brings us to October 18th, 2024. Julia was surfing in the waters near Ombak Bang Bang, near Masakut Island. This area is located off the coast of West Sumatra, Indonesia. Julia was there catching waves and enjoying the sun and sea with some friends and fellow surfers. The day was going about as normal as one would expect. Julia had done this so many times before. For her, it was as natural and as easy as breathing. She would soon grab her board, her toes feeling their way within the sand beneath her feet. She would begin her walk, soon wading out into the warm, salt water, the sun shining with not a cloud in the sky overhead. Soon, Julia would wade out far enough, feeling the waves carry her up and down underneath her board. As she began catching one of those beautiful waves, something completely unimaginable would occur. As Julia was on her board, a fish would come careening out of the crystal clear waters before her. Now, I've seen it reported as a swordfish, and I've also seen it reported as a needlefish. Either way, both needlefish and swordfish have long, sharp bills and have the ability to jump out of the water. As this creature came at her unexpectedly, the nose of the fish would plunge straight into the left side of Julia's chest, immediately knocking her from her board, sending her plunging backwards into the waters below. For those around Julia, it immediately became apparent that she was in some sort of distress. Onlookers would hurry to her aid, rushing her to shore where 2 people attempted to provide her with help. She was soon rushed to a local medical center where it was discovered that she had a 5-centimeter stab wound within her chest. Medical staff would do all they could for the young woman, but at only 36 years of age, Julia Manfrini would be pronounced dead. What her exact cause of death was has been speculated on. But one report stated that she had begun foaming from the nose during the ordeal, which according to reports suggests that she was oxygen deprived from drowning. Whatever the cause of the death was, what happened to Julia was the most freak of accidents. The chance of one of these fish jumping out of the water when they did and careening into her the way it did is just unbelievable. In the end, Julia died while doing what she loved more than anything in the world. Although she only lived to be 36, I think it's easy to say that Julia truly lived a vibrant and fulfilling life. I want to take a brief moment to send my deepest condolences to all of Julia's friends, family, and the many people she came into contact with over her brief time on this planet. Now, before we dive into story number 2, I just want to take a brief moment to say hi to everyone, thank you for watching, and if you enjoy what I do here, please consider taking a quick moment to hit that like button and leave a comment below. Also, please subscribe if you haven't already. It will help push this video out to more and more people just like each and every one of you. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into another story. Lunenburg County is a county nestled within the Commonwealth of Virginia. It is just southwest of Richmond, Virginia, and is around 96 miles north of Raleigh, North Carolina. Lunenburg is known for its strong agriculture. Its climate is suited to various crops, with tobacco being its principal cash crop for some time. A large portion of the Lunenburg area is made up of rolling hills and dense forests. This story takes us there on December 9th, 2024. Lester C. Harvey was a 58-year-old man from Phoenix, Virginia. Phoenix is around a 35-mile, 56-kilometer drive northwest from Lunenburg. Lester was a self-employed contractor who worked day in and day out to provide for his family. He was also an avid outdoorsman. It was December, and it was certainly a cold one, as Lester woke early. See, on this day, he and some friends of his were going hunting within the wilderness of Lunenburg County. Lester was an avid nature lover and lifelong hunter. He found himself truly at home within the quiet tranquility of the Virginia forests he frequented for such a large amount of his life. He had been hunting for decades at this point, and this morning felt like so many that had come before. Lester prepared his rifle and double-checked that his bags were packed with everything he would need for today's trip. He soon set off, hoping to reach the forest before the morning's first light. As he and his companions met up, the forest was quiet and still in the dim morning light. They soon set off, with nothing but the crunch of cold dead leaves sounding off under their boots. The men would continue traveling into the dense forest, listening for the sound of wildlife while keeping their eyes open for tracks. As the sun continued its upward trajectory, mid-morning would greet the men with their first potential prey. The men found themselves a black bear, and it was luckily still unaware of their presence. Lester and the other hunters would quietly give each other a glance, knowing that this was going to be their target. But before any of them could act, the bear picked up on the group being there, probably catching a whiff of the men in the cold morning breeze. The bear would take off, faster than any of the men, as black bears can reach a speed of up to 35 miles per hour or 56 kilometers per hour. Lester and his friends would give chase after the bear, rifles drawn and at the ready in case the animal decided to stop and hold its ground. Soon enough, the animal spotted a tree and made the decision to scale it in an effort to evade the intruders of his forest refuge. The men would eventually catch up with the bear, Lester stopping around 10 feet from where the animal was now perched in the tree. The men took a brief moment to catch their breath before Lester's friend took aim with his rifle. Within a couple of breaths, the crack of the rifle was heard echoing through the forest. His aim had been true, as the bullet plunged into the bear. The bear let out a cry before his body gave out. But what happened next, no one was prepared for. The animal's hulking black mass would fall from the tree. Even though Lester was standing around 10 feet from the base of this tree, it wasn't enough, and he did not realize it until it was too late. As the heavy animal came crashing down on top of Lester, pinning him under his powerful weight. Lester's friend quickly rushed to his aid, working to get the animal off of Lester. It was apparent that Lester was not doing well. Now it's unclear what Lester's injuries truly were, but one can suspect that there was potentially broken bones and internal bleeding. Now, I have seen some differing reports on what happened next, but what I know for certain is that Lester was helped out of the woods and he would eventually make it to a local hospital. Lester was as tough as they come, and he fought for his life bravely. But 4 days later, on December 13th, Lester's battle would come to an end, as he succumbed to the numerous injuries he had suffered. Lester was 58 years old and left behind a wife, 5 children, and 8 grandchildren. Following the tragedy, Lester's son would write, "I love you, Dad. We had some great times. I am so thankful for all the memories we made and all you taught me. I wouldn't be the man I am now if it wasn't for you." One of Lester's daughters also wrote, "My dad was the hardest worker I know. He was either working or hunting. The only time he missed work was to hunt. I'm broken in ways I didn't even know I could break. Please just pray for us." As always, I want to send my deepest condolences to all of Lester's friends and family. It was January 18th, 2015, in North Miami, Florida. North Miami is a suburban city that is located within the northeast of Miami-Dade County. It's about 10 miles or 16 kilometers north of Miami. 68-year-old Dennis Antiporak, along with his wife Ronnie, both resided at the Eden Isles condominium complex. This complex provided good living to the couple, as it had a private gym, private pool, and private sauna. Dennis was closing in on celebrating his 69th birthday. Around this time, he and his wife Ronnie were also closing in on their 50th wedding anniversary. The pair had been high school sweethearts, and their love had remained strong for decades up to this point. At around 11 p.m. that evening, Dennis made the decision to venture on down to the private sauna. This was something he had done numerous times, and he enjoyed spending some time within the heat. He would proceed to get himself ready, towel in hand. He then scribbled out a note onto the refrigerator, letting his wife know where he was heading off to. Dennis would then make his way to the doorway of the apartment, exit, and make his way down to the sauna. 3 hours would pass before Ronnie Antiporak awoke from a deep sleep. She immediately realized her husband was nowhere to be found. In a panic, she went and woke the pair's daughter, Laura. Laura would immediately hop out of bed, throwing on some clothes and then beginning the search for her father. They would first travel downstairs at the condo, checking Dennis's car to see if he had driven off anywhere, but they found his car resting in the same place it had been earlier in the day. They then traveled back to the condo and did a thorough search, but Dennis was simply nowhere to be found. That's when Laura had the idea of checking out the men's locker room, where the sauna is located. Her father often ventured down there, and they were hopeful that that's where he would be. They would soon arrive at the sauna door, and Laura would attempt to open it, but the door was scalding hot to the touch. It would take some further effort, but Laura would manage to pop the door open. The extreme heat radiated from within the room, smashing into Laura like an all-encompassing hot wet blanket, making it hard for her to catch her breath. The steam would slowly exit the room, and visibility would finally return. At the same time, the smell of cooked flesh was pungent within the air. It was like being inside a giant beef jerky dehydrator. As her eyes began to focus, a horrifying discovery was made. There, in the room, was a body on the floor. It was curled up in a fetal-like position. The skin was black and charred, like it had been left on a grill for far too long. Pieces of the cooked body were adhered to parts of the bench and the floor. It was an absolutely horrifying scene. As she examined the man, her first thought was, "Well, that's not my dad." She swiftly had to exit the room. The heat and smell was too much for her to bear. After leaving the room, she knew she would have to call 911, but before she did, she made another discovery. There, hanging just outside the sauna, was a pair of clothes, and she knew instantly whose clothes they were. They belonged to her father, Dennis Antiporak. To everyone's horror, this body, burned beyond recognition, was indeed Dennis. The police would soon be called to the scene. At first, it was presumed that Dennis had died from natural causes, but the police would later make the decision to do a full autopsy. As all this occurred, the family of Dennis hired a lawyer, as they felt the condo owners were responsible in what had happened. The family's lawyer, Joseph Madelon, was later quoted as saying, "We believe that the heart attack was heat-induced. The heating coils on the sauna are required to have a thermostat, and the timer should have worked. Under no circumstances whatsoever should the heat have gotten to a level where he cooked. He was a regular user of the sauna, so his body was used to it. He would go multiple times a week, so we know his body was capable of handling a sauna when it was properly functioning. Our assumption has been that it was a heat-induced stroke, heat-induced heart attack, or heat-induced dehydration." Following a full autopsy, it was found that Dennis had suffered acute, mild cardioinfarction due to hyperintensive and atherosclerosis heart disease. It's unclear how long Dennis was alive inside the sauna, but the family has pointed to the fact that the timer seemingly didn't work appropriately, because if it had, it would have stopped the sauna from continuing to heat up. At the same time, no one knows for sure why Dennis didn't simply get up and walk out. Many believe he may have fallen asleep inside, waking only long enough to realize that he had been cooked to his seat. He may have then tried to get up, falling to the ground where he would ultimately perish at some point. Either way, this is an absolutely horrifying fate for anyone to have suffered. As always, my deepest condolences go out to all of Dennis's friends and family. Thank you all for tuning in to another one of my episodes. If you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel continue to grow. It's also very important that you hit the notification bell and turn on notifications, as you may not be alerted of my uploads if you don't do so. And if you turn them on, you also may not be alerted, because that's what YouTube's been doing lately. In the description box below, you'll also find a link to my merch store and a link to the Cellar Dwellers membership tier for the channel. If you're interested, please take a moment to go check those things out. If you'd like to submit any kind of scary story or story recommendation in general, you can do so using the email linked in the description box below. As always, I do all the research, writing, recording, and editing for the channel myself, so anything that you do to help support the channel, I greatly appreciate it. And until next time, I will see you all again as we head back into the cellar.